Okay, Meshach. Um, all right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on another edition of our Green Talk with EdenWorld Conservation Initiative. We're happy to be here again this year. Of course, this is the first edition this year, and we are coming on a very, very bright note with a, a knowledgeable person, a man of great value, and of course, someone who is a pro in this in the field of policy and biodiversity conservation. So thank you so much for joining us. And before I introduce our guest, my name is Olaolu Adetula, and I'll be anchoring this session together with my colleague, Honor, who is also on the call. Honor, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Olalua. Okay,
All right. Okay, Honor, you can go ahead and talk about knowledge. Yeah, just tell us a few things about him. Yeah.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Knowledge. Is the coordinator for conservation in Zimbabwe, and he will be handling our questions today. And Mr. Olalua will give a more detailed description about him so that we can get to know him better.
All right. Thank you so much. So, as a kind of correction, so Knowledge is the program coordinator for GYBN Zimbabwe, and also is also an alumnus of the EdenWorld Policy Fellowship with the African Wildlife Conservation, um, and also the United Nations Environment Program. So, as we go on, trust me, you are going to enjoy him, and his name is Knowledge, and also is a knowledgeable person in this field. So thank you so much for joining us, Knowledge Vingi.
It's a pleasure, my dear brother Olalua. I'm so happy to be on this show, Madam Honor.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So today we'll be discussing policy and biodiversity conservation. And we'll be looking at how the two work together, and of course, some amazing insights from the two. So let me hand over to Honor to kickstart.
All right, thank you. So the first question goes to Mr. Knowledge. We all know that conservation cannot thrive without implementation of policies, and it's one key thing that we all want to know about and work with in the conservation ecosystem. So, sir, I want to know your perspective as regards the two, policy and biodiversity conservation on the global and local level. We want to know your perspective about the two and their relationships, sir.
Thank you, Madam Honor. I'll go right into it. My basic understanding about policy are sort of strategies that are set about by an entity to sort of create what we call needs. So this can be set at a local level, as we have agreed to say, a local council, or can be a global set of strategy or idea so that we control what we say is conservation. In this regard, conservation is the basic sustainable doing of our natural resources, could it be flora or fauna. So in this regard, the conservation policies can be a set of rules or species, for example, could be one species, could be an entire ecosystem, or could be a generic natural environment. That's my basic understanding about policy and biodiversity conservation. And obviously, local actions lead to global activities or global policies. So that's how I view it, Madam Honor.
All right, thank you so much, sir. That was quite insightful. Um, we also know that building on what you said, that policies are strategies that sustains conservation. So also want to know what are the qualities of good policies that can be derived towards biodiversity conservation? What are the qualities of good policies that we can extract, we can implement, we can work with in biodiversity conservation, sir?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to look at qualities in terms of set of basic rules or understanding of what a policy is. So I'm going to look it in the abbreviation form of SMART. So a good policy should be specific. You are looking at a specific ecosystem, you are looking at a specific species, you are looking at a specific environment that you want to conserve, for example. With that specific ecosystem that you're focusing on, your policy then has to be measurable. I can relate to the current post-2020, actually it's now after 2020, the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. It's measurable by set of conditions to say by this time and this time we expect to have conserved certain percentage of that whole ecosystem or this type of species. Now, the other key aspect of a policy is achievability. Can we achieve what we've said? In this sort of in sense, we're saying, is it realistic to set a target? This is why you were following the post-2020 negotiations, the 30 by 30 campaign. It had some sort of pull and push issues, because people were saying, are we realistic about this type of policy? Is it achievable considering what is available in terms of resources? The other issue
I hi, Ono.
Hello.
Okay, I think Knowledge is trying to join us back. Maybe his network is buffering, kind of. Yeah. So, all right. So, when it comes, all right. So, sorry for that network each. So when Knowledge comes back, is we are going to continue from where it stops, and as far as biodiversity and policy issues are concerned, and we must be ready to to know the balance, know how to balance the two, where policy comes into biodiversity conservation. And of a truth, we cannot really do well as far as biodiversity conservation is concerned if we do not have a good policy to drive the necessary action. So policy our policy or different policies that are made available must be backed up with action. And of course, whatever policies we are making, or the policy bodies are making, they must ensure that it is action backed, or let me say they're action backed. So as much as we talk about different policies that should be in place, there must be a kind of leverage for the implementation of some of these policies. As different stakeholders involved in conservation, we have different stakeholders. We have the government agencies, we have the non-governmental organizations, we have the youth, we have the indigenous people, we have we have the different NGOs and other IGOs involved. So if these people are coming, we must learn and understand that it is very, very important for us to back up whatever we are doing with actions. So I hope Knowledge will join us very soon. Yeah, all right. So I sorry for that. I hope Knowledge will join us as soon as possible back. Okay, so like I was saying, different policies must be backed with actions to implement such policies at different levels, in different ecosystems, at different landscapes. We must ensure that people are involved, and these issues are not totally in place if we take away the activities, or let me say what we call the community actions, perspective, or work in implementing this. So whatever we do, we must learn to leverage on the different strategies to implement biodiversity conservation. So I think we can still talk about some of these issues, before Knowledge comes back. Yeah. Okay. So Honor, so you want to say anything, and maybe share a kind of perspective, what you think?
Okay, well, for my own school of thought, I would just say that biodiversity conservation is not a one-man business. We all have a quota to contribute as an individual, especially before we even move into the organizations and NGOs and international bodies. What are we doing personally to conserve the biodiversity in our environment? Are we spreading the gospel to fight against illegal felling of trees? Are we spreading the gospel against poaching? So all these things matter, or we are also joining them to cut down trees, and for charcoal, for a lot of things, so killing bush animals for bush meat. So these are the things that make up the biodiversity in our society. So beyond organizations, it should start with us as individuals. We
Yeah,
should work
yeah,
together
yeah.
to to conserve the environment, conserve the biodiversity, and through that we can also jingle the bells on the local level, the national level, about policy implementation. Yes, we have policy, but it's not strong enough and it's not well followed. So that is the problem that we have in the country. So even where we are, even okay, I can remember when I was in Calabar and I was working with NCF, I saw a lot of anthropogenic activities carried out by the people. Sometimes my boss, we have to go to the cross river local areas to conduct seminars and teachings on wetland restoration, all of this. So it starts with our local environment before we go to the national level. So that's just my school of thought, Olalua.
All right. So thank you so much. Let me try and bring Meshach to the call now. Meshach also is a sustainability expert, and then is a professional in this field, in the field of environmental science. So I'm trying to bring Meshach up to the space now, so that he can as well share his thoughts on what we are talking about right now on the show. So Meshach, if you're on the call, please feel free to join the conversation. Okay, so I was about to say something the other time too, that at national levels we must learn to engage our lawmakers. we
Yes.
must learn to engage our lawmakers. You understand? Some of these lawmakers, they might not have the full understanding of making the right laws that would drive biodiversity conservation. And of course, as experts, as individuals, as different stakeholders, while we are engaging them, we are professionals. We must learn to engage them such that they can have the right perspective. They are like the drivers of this. They need our votes to be up there. We vote for them as our lawmakers. And what do we need back from them? So we need them to help us drive the issue of having the right policy, having the right laws backed with action on different conservation issues at the national level. So and I also feel youth organizations have a very strong role to play uh,
Mm.
in implementing in driving good policy. Like EdenWorld now, we are youth organization. We also have some other youth organizations. We have Youth for Nature, we have Young Grow, of course. We have a whole lot of other organizations working on policies environment. So different youth organizations must learn to come together and and give their best, engage different individuals so that they can do what we are clamoring for. So I think knowledge. Yeah, so sorry to all our audience. We are so sorry. We have a bit of network glitch. Meshak, if you are on, you can please feel free to join the call. All right. Knowledge, if you can hear me, please let me know. Let me know, please, if you can hear me. All right. I think it still has some. Okay, great. Meshak, welcome to the call.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Olalua. And the issue of policies and biodiversity conservation is before we even talk about biodiversity conservation on its own, we need to look at policy at large. Okay. Why do we make policies? What are the what can we say are the factors of good policies? Okay, any kind of policy, either biodiversity conservation policy, climate policy, any policy around anything needs to, rest on some pillars. And number one is one of the pillars that a good policy will rest on is clear objectives. And when we talk, if we are relating this to biodiversity conservation or anything we are relating it with, if the objective is not well defined, okay, we can't, how do I put it now? We cannot say this is what we are trying to achieve. We need to make the objectives clear enough. So the thing about biodiversity conservation is how many person who even works in biodiversity today can state clearly the objectives of the policies that are made concerning biodiversity conservation. Okay, how many like apart from maybe some experts, how many biodiversity like conservation practicing person, like someone who is studying forestry, who is studying one thing or the other in relation to biodiversity, can really say these policies around biodiversity conservation, I can really state clearly what the objectives are. Okay, everyone at some point they are bringing up different strategies about the thing they think of. Someone will say, "I became a vegetarian because I want to conserve biodiversity." Okay, different kind of things. Okay, the objectives, I feel sometimes the objectives are not clearly defined. Okay, the second thing is comprehensive approach. When you talk about, okay, policies, biodiversity conservation, we need to have a comprehensive approach. Okay, we need to have, okay, how do we address this and this within the complete policy framework? What are the steps that we can take? Okay, like is it Jim Rohn that was saying something about goal settings, and he said, like, you cannot just have something as a big objective. You need to have methods that will broken down that we can take either daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly to achieve that ultimate goal. That is the only way we can measure growth. So what is the approach? Do we have a comprehensive approach to, to working around those policies and implementing them? The third thing what are the science-based approach? What is the science behind our policies? Okay, for example, you may talk about protecting biodiversity, and a poor person is seeing what you are thinking to protect as a resource for him to sustain himself from being poor, to save himself from poverty, or save herself, save their family from poverty. Okay, say you're talking about the issue of, say, don't harvest this kind of species. Like, they don't care, they just want fuel wood. They just want fuel wood. They just want crops. They just want one thing or the other. They don't care about what species you are protecting. What is the science behind it?
They just want to live.
They just want to live. They just want to exist. Okay, what is the science behind it? And if you know the science behind it, how are you communicating the science? How do you want to make them understand why they should take those actions that you are implementing through your policy? Okay, like, there was a research that was done where we had this. It is called a photo research, and a professor they gave cameras to, like, a photo camera to some young people. They gave it to some young folks living in an environment, and they told them to take pictures of what interests them about biodiversity, like what they love about the environment and the reason why they want to protect the environment. Okay, and you know what these kids do? These kids were taking pictures of their old grandmothers. They were taking pictures of their old grandmothers, and the professor was so amazed, and it was like, why are they taking the pictures of their grandmother and not taking pictures of the trees, and not taking pictures of the birds, and not taking pictures of the things we call biodiversity? But when they asked the children, one of the children, that is a child, said, I want to protect the environment because the environment made my grandmother live long. Because the environment made my grandmother live long. So that child, the science he understands behind biodiversity conservation is how it protected the grandmother and helped the grandmother live long in a healthy way. So you can see that there are different benefits that people are getting from biodiversity. And if you don't push it and communicate it in this perspective, this policy we are making and everything, no matter how we implement them, we're not going to get the results that we desire. Then the last one I'm going to talk about before I think knowledge back here, the last one I'm going to talk about is inclusivity. Who is making this policy? For whom? Through whom? Who is the beneficiary? Okay, who is gaining the dominance? All right, who is getting the dominance? Okay, who is the one exerting the hegemony around the policy we are implementing? Who is the person talking about it? Who is getting the best benefit out of it? Okay, are we excluding some people, and some people are just at the top of the food chain and to enjoy all that comes around it? Okay, it needs to be inclusive. Until then, we cannot talk about if the policy is good enough, or if the policy, when implemented, will achieve its ultimate purpose. So thank you very much. I think
thank you. Thank you so much, Meshach. If you are comfortable, you can still be on the call. If you're okay with that. Yeah. So welcome back, Knowledge. Sorry for that glitch. Okay, so moving, let us just continue from where we stopped. I would like to ask you this question on some of the biodiversity policy making bodies or institutions. Can you share some ideas on some of the biodiversity policy making, biodiversity conservation policy making institution, or maybe some of their platforms, some of their conferences, so that our audience can learn better?
Yes, thank you, Ola. My apologies. I think you all understand the African network problems, but it's a pleasure to be back again. I would like to look at them from a regional going into the global perspective of those making institutions. From a regional perspective, you may have regional groupings making policies for biodiversity conservation. I may look at the Southern African Development Community. I may look at the East African community, the ECOWAS. I may look at the West African type of arrangement for policy making. And those type of regional groupings can make policies specific to the region that they are focusing on. Beyond the regional groupings, you have the continental body, which is your African Union, making biodiversity policies with its highest decision-making body, which is the African Ministerial Conference for Ministers of Environment, which is held, I think, after almost every 2 years to deliberate on policies relating to biodiversity conservation in Africa. Beyond that, you've got the UNCBD, the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, which is the global wing in policy making, which sets global ambitions for biodiversity conservation. And within which biodiversity conservation, you may have a UNFCCC, the Climate Change Convention. It also feeds into biodiversity conservation because you can't talk of biodiversity and climate in a separate entity. You may have your Convention on Migratory Species. These are now species-specific policy-making bodies. Your CITES, which regulates international trade for flora and fauna. So there are broader and local biodiversity making policy institutions. But even within a country, you may have a specific ministry responsible for policy making in biodiversity and environmental issues. So I may have touched on a few, and obviously you all I have been to various platforms like this, and you may share more. Madam Ona?
All right, thank you so much for that knowledge. Thank you so much. So I want to, building on what you said concerning the different institutional bodies that we have concerning policy making for biodiversity conservation, we want to know over the years, over the period, the transition, do you think there have been barriers concerning good policy when it comes to biodiversity conservation? And also want to know what are the barriers, what are the limitations to policies concerning biodiversity conservation?
Thank you, ma'am. I think the previous speaker might have touched on a few aspects that lead to barriers in conservation. Key among them is your issue to do with evidence. Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm saying the key aspect that leads to barriers in policy acceptance is lack of evidence. This is where you might find that whenever there's a COP coming or a major event coming, you have your International Panel for Biodiversity and Ecosystems Assessment. They give evidence and science to back a policy. So without science and evidence, policies become difficult to implement. So that's a barrier. The other issue is political priority. I've mentioned in my opening remarks the 30 by 30 campaign. On the other end, the African governments were focused on saying, do we have space for people to stay? On the other end, they didn't have the political priority to conserve more space, already looking at the fact that they failed to achieve the 17% target from the H1. So the political priority now becomes a key. If you don't have political will, your policy is likely to fail. The other thing is poor stakeholder engagement. I think the previous speaker mentioned about inclusivity being a key aspect. If people are not included in the policy making, it's likely to fail because they were not part of the policy making from the grassroots point of view. Lastly, I may speak about communication. How do you package your communication? How have you evaluated your your communication idea? Was it clear to everyone involved in the policy making process so that whenever you are now speaking or soliciting for ideas, everyone is abreast what is expected? I think those are some of the few aspects that lead to barriers in acceptance of the policy. If those things are clear, then you are set.
Thank you very much. I could pick politics.
All right. Thank you so much. Ono, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Because the feedback I'm getting from here is not too good, but fine. All right. So, moving on to the next question for our guest. I would like him to talk about local actions in driving policy and biodiversity conservation. Do you see a linkage between the two, local actions and using local actions to drive biodiversity, use it to drive policy and biodiversity conservation, or let me say, local action, policy, and biodiversity conservation. So do you see a linkage in this?
If I may come in.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Well, yeah. So I've mentioned in the previous interventions to say a policy can be a global policy, but what is key is, does it solve or relate to local problems? This is why the post-2020 consultation was grounded on the grassroots. They to feed into the global view of what is expected in that policy. So local actions are critical in implementing a policy. For example, there were set targets to say we want to achieve a total conservation area of at least 30% by 2030. This means there need to be local innovations and ideas and inputs to achieve that 30%. This is a global goal, but countries or local counties are responsible in implementing this policy. Some other key issues are to do with restoration. We have seen several activities or interventions by youth groups, community groups, indigenous peoples in ecosystem restoration. This is their own ecosystem and this is their own livelihood that they are making sure that it's maintained and conserved. So local actions become paramount because they are the ones who are also going to benefit from the intervention and also the one who are going to contribute to the global output. So local actions play a critical role in biodiversity conservation because without these, you don't have a global overview of things. But with local small actions, you create a very big global impact. For example, the green belt that the Eastern and Western African communities is working on. These are small interventions per country leading into a regional intervention which becomes huge. So I'm very positive and upbeat that local actions contribute to the global view of biodiversity conservation, yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that insightful exposure to the integration of local actions and policy making. So lastly, on biodiversity conservation and policy from our end, before we throw the floor open to the audience for their questions, we want to know thus far in the midst of talking about policy conservation, so do you think youth are doing enough? Do you think youth are involved in conservation, implementation of policies, and biodiversity conservation? Do you think we are doing enough? And how can we do better? How can the youth get involved in the system? How can the youth be empowered concerning biodiversity conservation and policy implementation?
Thank you, Madam. The issue of youth involvement is of paramount importance for Africa, considering that I think 60% of its population is a youth demography, and the disenfranchisement of that group means there's no progress for Africa. Looking at the Agenda 2063, it's a long-term vision for Africa, and the youth involvement becomes a key thing if Africa has to achieve whatever it's set. So, in my understanding of youth involvement, so far we've seen a rise up of youth actions within the African landscape. Youth who are capable of contributing to the African agenda, and actions that we've seen, issues to do with restoration, issues to do with policy making. For example, recently, I think we've seen a huge contingent of youth delegates at the UNCPT conference from Africa and from the globe itself. And the campaign was, we need to stop the same. What has been happening is we were promised to be involved, but we were never involved. But now the engagement is being seen, and the African youth voice is being engaged. And what we need to do is to show that we are capable. So the best way to show that we are capable is to do on-ground action. Where can we intervene to help governments, CSOs, NGOs in trying to mobilize and do activities within our capacity? And youth-led projects are receiving tremendous limelight. And we need to tap on that. The issue of technology, we are the ones capable of doing it. Well, how can we showcase what we are doing so that I can see what guys in Nigeria are doing, be motivated to also do the same here in Zimbabwe? So youth actions are key, and we need to tap and take advantage of the IT or ICT revolution so that we do actions that we can. But there's need to capacity build the youth. The recent training that Ola mentioned about policy making, where we were being trained on how to negotiate and become good negotiators for Africa. The argument that we were having was, Africa goes into conferences, they negotiate, but are they capacitated enough to understand what's on the table, what they can offer, and how they can take advantage of whatever policy making which is in place? So we need to do more, have more hubs, have more training units, so that whenever Africa is speaking, it's capacitated enough and is knowledgeable enough to engage.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Knowledge, for that beautiful contribution, and of course, a great answer to that particular question. All right, we are almost getting to the end of the show. I would like to ask you, Knowledge, if you have any other thing you want to add to this topic of discussion from your end.
I just want to appreciate the platform that you've set, Eden Initiative. These are platforms that African youths have to tap on so that we contribute to the bigger discourse about discussions and policies, and keep on the momentum, reach out to more African youths so that we create a movement of able and knowledgeable African youths. Thank you so much.
All right, Knowledge again. Sorry, before I let you go finally, you want to say something about GYBN in your country, or maybe some of the works you do, or maybe something relating to GYBN?
Thank you, Olalua. We are very happy to be part of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. I'm part of the Zimbabwean chapter. We are pushing youth involvement in policy making, in local actions, capacity building them, and always amplifying youth-led innovations in the biodiversity space. We are super happy that the African chapter is growing, and we are looking forward to more engagements. And the past CBD negotiation issues, we're happy to be part of those. Now we are on the implementing cycle, and there are a lot of activities set up. I'll be super excited to share some of these opportunities on my LinkedIn or on the Zimbabwe Biodiversity Network Facebook page. You guys can follow us, see what we are doing, and also share with us what you think we must do so that the African conservation narratives is African-centered. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, my dear brother. Thank you. On behalf of every one of us at EdenWorld Conservation Initiative, we are so grateful for your time. Thank you for sharing from your wealth of experience and knowledge on this discussion. Honor, anything from you before we call it a wrap?
I just want to say thank you for coming on board, and thank you for dishing out knowledge to us, and thank you for the exposure to policy and biodiversity conservation. I personally gained one or two things too that will help me in my further career. So thank you so much, Knowledge, for teaching us and also for imparting value to us today. Thank you so much.
It has been a pleasure.
All right, thank you so much, Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are joining us from, please feel free to follow Knowledge Vingi on all his social media platforms, on LinkedIn, Knowledge Vingi, on Twitter too, and of course on Facebook. Feel free to reach out to him, and I know he will be happy to share some of their experiences and some of his works with you. All right, thank you so much once again for joining us on today's edition of our Green Talk, EdenWorld Conservation Initiative Green Talk. And then I really want to thank you for your time, and also that you should please make sure you join us for another wonderful edition that will be coming up next month. All right, thank you so much from me and my beautiful partner, Ono. We are saying
thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.